Hello and welcome to Share.Care's What is Manly radio show and podcast. Men feel more lonely, lost, and not useful in society than ever in history. Males are not attaching to school, work, or women. What it means to be a man appears lost. Is there a framework for being manly that we can unearth?
Welcome to Share.Care, an all-inclusive community sharing experience, strength, and hope to create strong, healthy, and inspiring relationships. Share.Care communities work toward every individual feeling safe, valued, and heard, free from the threat of danger, pain, or harm. Each episode, founder Damian Andrews explores the principles underpinning Share.Care and invites expert special guests to share their knowledge so you can easily reap the benefits so many others experience. You hold the choice to create your future. Let it be with strong, healthy, and inspiring relationships.
Hello, Caroline. How are you?
I am doing wonderfully, Damon. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. We got a little bit of a transition here. You're in Washington. I'm in Melbourne, Australia, and it's morning for me and evening for you. Isn't the world wonderful how we can communicate?
What I love it. I love it. It's like the time zones don't even exist, even though they do.
Exactly. Sometimes we've got to get sleep and go, oh, hang on a minute, I'm not going to have that interview that time of the morning, but But for the audience, we've got Dr. Carolyn D. Mack, and she's the founder of Taylor McKinney Strategies, who empower midlife professional women to navigate life's transitions, to reimagine their purpose, to have a life, not a living. So,
yes.
And that relates very much to the topic that we're talking about, is what is manly? Because if I'm not correct, women like men. Have I not confused something there?
No, you are at 100% correct. We like men, and we like men a lot.
Yeah,
we really do.
And
more than we let on.
Oh, you're going to let some secrets out here. This is going to be a good interview. I love that. So this whole hard to get thing is a play, is it?
Yeah, we can't let y'all in too quickly because then, things run amok.
Exactly. And that really relates to what's going on in the world, or what seems to be going on in the world at the moment, where there's men that are lost, they're lonely, they're not useful in society. From your perspective, let's start global, start from a wider perspective. What is your experience with that? What have you seen in that area with men being lost and feeling not useful in society?
Well, especially coming from the perspective of the African American male, if I can look at it from that perspective, because that's really what I've encountered many men in my life, but from the African American male perspective, it feels for me, and having children and family members that are male, is that it's like an inability to find your place. And doing what you feel you must, that society says, do this and you'll have a place. And then you do that and there's no place. And so that's what, it's like the moving goalpost. You get close, but you never arrive. And there's a frustration that comes with that. It's like, why can I never arrive? Why can I never get it? What's wrong? And that's when they turn, and I think most people do this. They turn on themselves.
Right.
Like, what's wrong with me that I can never arrive? I'm sorry, I get a little passionate.
Oh, no, I love that. Please do. I mean, I'm passionate. That's why we're doing this, because we're passionate about solving this. So, and I love what you're saying is, why can I never get it? Why can't I ever arrive? That's profound. Because, if you're not arriving anywhere, you would feel pretty lost. That fits.
Yeah. It's like you just keep, you're continuing. You have to move. You have to do things. Society is saying, do all of these things.
Mm.
And then I'm doing them. I'm doing what my parents said I needed to do. I'm doing what society says I need to do. I'm doing what other men say I need to do. And this imaginary arrival place, this finish line, this place where you can, do like, I don't know if you're familiar with the movie Rocky, where you can raise your hand and say, yes, I've made it. And it never comes.
Do you think it's the part of that too? I mean, stereotypically, men are Mr. Fix-It, and as much as women would like us just to listen, so a lot of times when you tell us something, we're going, okay, just do this and you solve the problem. And that's when you want to stab us.
How did you guess?
I've got wounds. Metaphorically, of course.
Yeah.
But from that perspective, because we have this, generally, we're speaking generality. If I can speak, English is my second language. I don't have a first one. It's okay. So,
all right.
Just speaking that broad term, let me change the word. If men are Mr. Fix-It and we are looking for, and we can fix it. And we know we can fix it, but then have we got too much detail now, too many different things to aspire to? Has it become too complicated?
I won't say that it's complicated. Maybe it needs to be filtered.
What way would you filter it?
Just one of the bigger filters is to really decide, do I need to fix this? That's the first thing, because if a woman is coming to you and and you guys have to be on guard. So I'm not going to blame it all on you, because when a woman comes to you, it's like, oh, this is double barreled right here. I'm not always sure what I'm going to get. And so the first thing is to filter it. And so I have, and just as an aside, I have a son and a daughter. They're both adults now, but when they were children, because I can be, okay, so a little background on me, because I'm going to back it up a little bit and then we'll bring it forward. Yeah. So a little background on me. I am a family of 8. There were 8 of us. I have 7 brothers.
Yeah.
So, and I am the youngest in the family. So I have 7 brothers. So as a rule, and as a result of that, I'm a bit of a tomboy. And I picked up a lot of, and my mother passed away when I was 2 years old.
Oh, wow.
So I had women figures in my life, but my beginning or budding years, 0 to 8, were spent primarily with men, a dad, 7 brothers. So I have masculine tendency. The masculine side of me comes forward a lot. So I'm a tomboy. I'm a kind of a fix it kind of person. I'm gonna fix the problem. You come into me with something, I'm gonna tell you how to fix it.
Okay.
So what I've learned with my children is that when they come to me and they say something, before I jump to fix it mode, and this is one of my filters, is I ask, are you giving me information, or would you like a solution? And then I give it back to them, and they then tell me which me they need to show up. Do they need me to be mom, or do they need me to give them a solution so they can move on to the next thing?
Yeah.
So that's one of the big filters that I think anyone, male or female, could use when they're interacting with the opposite sex in a conversation.
I love that what you're saying is, are you giving me information, or are you asking me to fix it? And taking the step earlier to what you said before, is the person asking themselves, do I need to fix it? So when society or people or whoever's coming and saying, oh, you need to do this, they ask themselves a question. So I think what you're getting to there is that the person needs to really identify who they are first, and then work out, does that fit? Am I reading that correctly or understanding that correctly?
And absolutely, you have to, and is that easy? I'm not, I've worked through this for a minute, so it's not easy if that's not how you are automatically wired. But having had some experiences where I've jumped to the let me fix it, and it's like, Mom, I don't need you to fix it, I need you to listen, because kids will tell you stuff like that. Kids are not quite as societally programmed early on. And they do things that we as adults are not supposed to do. They stomp around and they're like, you make me mad, I don't want you to fix it, I want you to so they're allowed to do that because they're kids and they're growing into themselves. But as adults, it's a little bit harder for us to throw the temper tantrum and not be scolded for that behavior. So we have a tendency to just like, either we go to our go-to, the immediate thing, let's just fix it and move on because I don't have capacity. And a lot of times it's just, you don't have capacity. I just can't. I don't have the brain power to try and deal with your stuff because I got my stuff going on.
And do you think that is from man's perspective, for men, where we've got this, where we want to be Mr. Fix-It? I think most men, if not, well, majority of men have good intentions. They want to do the right thing. And so when someone comes to them with a problem, the immediate thing is to try and fix it. But when they're coming to them with a problem that's to do with them, they still want to fix it. But they've got all different solution. There isn't a clear outcome, so they're going, how do I fix this? Does you think that's part of the confusion?
It's all piled on. And that's again a reason to build in some filters, so that you can get to what the real challenge is. Because what I've learned, having 7 brothers and a husband or 2, just a little bit and throw some in there, a husband or 2, and currently being in a relationship, what I've heard in my life and having gone through those relationships is, what do you want me to do about it? What do you want me to do? So they begin to look to me. It's like, you see this as a problem. I don't necessarily. So what do you want me to do to fix it? Because at that point, they're trying to appease me. They're trying to appease me and not necessarily look at themselves. They just wanted to go away. Again, it's about mental capacity to handle one more thing.
So are you saying, when they say, because is it the man saying, what do you want me to do about it? As in, they're seeing a problem, and is there a problem there, or they're interpreting the information incorrectly? And it comes back to that question, are you giving me information or are you asking me to fix it? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, in a way. I think is when you're in a relationship, again, this goes both ways. I'm not laying it all at the man's feet. But when you're in a relationship and you don't want your significant other to be upset with you. No one wants anyone to be upset with them.
Yeah.
And when your significant other is seemingly upset with you, they may just be frustrated. A lot of things play into that. Or this is an ongoing thing. It's like, I've asked you to fix that fence for the last 6 months.
Yeah.
So it could be one of those types of frustration, or I'm not feeling like you love me. It could be all over the board. But the man he just wants to make his woman happy. I really feel like that's it. I really don't feel like men are just going out there just not doing things simply because they want to upset us.
No, that's true. I'll put my hand up for saying I don't do that.
Yeah. So, it's like, you don't do that intentionally, but until you can really know your significant other and also know yourself. So there's a balance there. And once you're constantly trying to figure out what the balance is. Oh, she's mad at me now. My God, what have I done this time? You can't see it. You're unable to, and she's unable to articulate it. He can't see it. So he just, out of frustration, out of desperation, what do you want me to do to fix it? Yeah. Okay. Go fix the fence. Okay. Now you go and get the fence fixed, whatever the case may be. And then something else, same thing, same feeling, same anxiety comes up. So it's deeper than the fence. It's deeper than the fence. deeper than the garbage, it's deeper than the plumbing, whatever it is that they're asking for. It's deeper than that. But with so many other things coming at us, especially from a man's perspective, because men are told so many outlandish and women too.
Yeah.
We have been given this list of things about who we need to be as a gender.
Yeah.
Not just, but as a gender, women, sugar and spice and everything nice, and men. And see, I just gave away my age on that one. I'm not.
I would never ask the question, but I do know. I'm giving away my age because I know what you're talking about.
Okay, so we're in the same boat, but we understand. So these things that are put on us, about what it is to be a male, what it is to be a female, and live this life, and trying to make that work inside of us with giving little more than that poem.
Yeah.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. That's what little girls are made of. And it's like, well, I have a whole lot of spice. I don't know about a lot of sugar. I prefer agave. So, I mean, it's like, I got options. But those kinds of things are the things that really they play with us, because we can't help it as young people, as infants and toddlers and young people growing up and being influenced by our parental units. We don't have a lot of say as to what gets poured into us.
Yeah.
And we don't have and there's not a lot of filters to say. It's not a lot that says, oh, don't take that. That's not good. Like, leave that one, but you can take this one. And so we just kind of take, well, my mother said it, so it must be so. My father said it must be so. Now I have to figure out how to make it work in my life. And then we deal with, till this day, I'm still looking at some habitual things that I do. And I'm like, that doesn't work for me anymore. Yeah. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to change that, because I was told that a long time ago and I've carried it with me, and it just doesn't work. It doesn't fit my lifestyle. It doesn't fit who I am. And it flat out just doesn't even make sense. So, being able to get rid of stuff like that. So I don't know. I'm just, for me as a person and for the clients that I work with, digging deep is the way to really get rid of a lot of stuff, and then putting in filters to make sure that stuff doesn't come back in later on down the line.
Yeah, that's really, because I love these filters that you're talking about. And does it come back to, knowing yourself? And I'll relay this to a story from my own experience, where sometimes when I was dating someone, they'd get upset and they'd go away or give you the silent treatment, and I'd be chasing them to try and find out and solve the problem. And they got upset because they wanted, some attention, which resulted in me chasing them. But some of that, the people that did that probably weren't, it didn't really enable the issues to be resolved. And then finally I decided I'm not doing that anymore. If you've got a problem, tell me about it. I'll work it out. And it got to the extent of, we can talk through it. But I remember one particular time where that happened was I was with someone that I was seeing, and she was busy. We were going to bed, but she was busy doing stuff. And I jumped into bed and I pulled out my laptop and I was working while I was waiting. So I thought, you've got to do stuff. I'll do something while you're waiting. And she was busy for a long time, which, I didn't mind, no problem. And then she finished and she came into bed and snuggled up to me. And to be fair, I could have probably said, hey, yeah, I'll just be a couple of minutes, which I was literally going to be a couple of minutes to finish off the sentence that I was writing, and that was it. But she snuggled for a little bit, and then I heard the and she got out of bed and went to the other bedroom. And I was like, and I thought about it, I thought, no, I'm not chasing you this time. I waited for you for so long, and I'm not complaining about it. And yes, I admit, to be fair, I could have said, I'll just be a couple of minutes, but I didn't say that. But I thought, I'm not chasing you. And I left and I went to sleep, got up the next morning, got together, and it was like, okay, this was the situation. Look, I'm happy to have that conversation, but I'm not chasing you, and set that boundary. Is that the kind of filters you're talking about? But does it come to you knowing what you want as well?
Yeah, and that's really funny because I had a situation like that too. It's like no laptops in the bed. Full stop. This is just a boundary because she
Mm,
was thinking one thing, not realizing that her time was seemed really long to you. So you was
mm,
like, well, I'll do something to fill this time
yeah,
instead of building up this anxiety. When is she going to come? Is she going to come? What is she doing? What is happening? So
yeah,
you're starting these, instead of
mm,
doing that, yeah, a lot of conversations happened in that moment without ever being said.
yeah,
And I'm not chasing you and I'm mad at you because here I am now. And, it's like, well, but I was waiting for you and you took so long and I got on the laptop and, so a lot of unsaid, unspoken conversation happened.
mm,
And, yeah, building in those filters, but not filtering out the conversation,
mm,
but making sure that you're clarifying the conversation. So we
yeah,
use filters in cooking so that we get out of the big chunky things and you want something that's
yeah,
smooth, you want a puree, you want something
yeah.
that's silky and smooth in texture. But we have all these other lumps and bumps that we have to kind of work through. And I
Mm.
think that's probably, and just so you know, I do a lot of food analogies.
I love food, so that's fine. I've got a
I
good
do
job.
I do a lot of food analogies to bring home the point because everybody loves food, right? For the
Yeah.
most part. So yeah, so those filters are the kinds of things where it's like, okay, do I talk or do I just be quiet and let the conversation run in my head
Mm,
instead of coming out of my mouth?
yeah.
And it could erupt. It could absolutely erupt because there's multiple sides of your situation that you just outlined for us. Because you could have said, I don't know what you're getting angry about. I waited for you for 25 minutes. You've been in there doing God knows what.
Yeah.
So it could have been that. It could
Yeah.
have been the eruption.
Mm.
And but at the same time, so here's the other part. She could have been in the other room getting all pretty. Got my lingerie, putting on my makeup, spritz, spritz, spritz. I'm getting all pretty. It's gonna be a night tonight.
Yeah.
And she comes out and you're on a laptop.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Exactly. And that's the point we're getting to is with these filters that you're talking about, is it something where you go, okay, this is what we need to do? And like you said, you have this rule where no laptops in bed. And you go, okay, that's one way of dealing with that. And does it really come down to then one knowing for a guy, knowing what you want, but also to having the ability to have the conversation?
Yes, that knowing what you want is great.
The certainty there. Yes, yes. I love that.
Knowing what you want is, I would say, 60 to 75% of the battle. But
Mm,
if you never articulate that
mm,
to your loved one and get really clear about what that looks like for you,
yeah.
then they are unable to deliver what it is that you need to a level that will satisfy you. And that can be a problem.
Mm. I
Yeah.
love that because we're talking about, and we mentioned earlier about there's all these different rules and different society has different things and a lot of them can be right. It's well, that was put it the other way. A lot of them aren't wrong. It's just they're different opinions and different ways of approaching it.
Yeah.
Traditionally, it was as they talk about the man went to work and the woman stayed home. Today, it's great that it's the other way. Men can stay home and women go to work. And there's
Yes.
everywhere in between that as well. There's all these different options. Is it, from that perspective, when we're looking at it going, well, you need to decide what is right for you and then have that filter when if you're clear on what is right for you and that works. So a
Mhm.
guy goes, okay, this is what works for me. Society says all these different things, but these are the parts I'm pulling out. That works for me. And then, as you say, when you're out there with somebody, being able to communicate, okay, this is what's right for me, and do
Mhm.
that and have that relationship. Because once you're in your own little relationship bubble, it doesn't matter what the rest of the world says unless you allow it to.
Right.
Is that
Exactly. That's it. That's it in a nutshell. You summed it up perfectly.
How does a
That
guy do that then? Is it just having the confidence to say, this is what I want? Or how do we get to that point?
oh wow.
And we got it. We're gonna. This is a little teaser because we have to wind up the radio show soon. So for the rest of this,
Okay, so I'm gonna do this one real quick, and we can continue on the other end because that was loaded. Such a loaded question. How does the guy do this? Well, he had him knowing who he is, knowing what he brings to the table, and being able to understand that what his needs are. It's like some men were taught societally not to have, you can't have needs. You shouldn't cry. You shouldn't have emotions. And when those things come, they either run from them or they push them down. And, I'm a man. I can't do, can't let this woman know she got me and stuff like that. And stuff. So it's a big challenge to try and figure out or try and go through that process of really knowing yourself because it's scary and it's unknown. So I think that's probably the biggest thing. But it can be done.
Yeah. Oh well, let's explore that on the other side of the radio show. We've got for the radio listeners, we're going to have to tune out here because we've run out of time. But feel free to catch the rest of this in the podcast. So yeah, let's go there. This is really exciting. I love this. Where knowing what you bring to the table, I love that. I want to explore that, but also to knowing what you need, because this whole vulnerability part of it, where yeah, let's go.
Okay, let's do it. But it's and that's one of the things that I thought about even before I came on. I was like, whew. The men in my life and the things that they, they're up against. And how can you be vulnerable to a woman who just might, like you said, the knives come out. Because we are all, both genders, we are all looking for our needs to be met.
Yeah.
And we want that person to meet our needs. And when they're not doing that, it's frustrating. And I know it's frustrating for me from a woman's perspective, but a man is, flipping the script and looking through a man's eyes and the fact that I am doing all that I can, basically all. When I hear that coming from a man, and I've heard it a few times, when I'm like, I'm mad and it's like, I'm doing all that I can. I'm paying the bills. I'm working. I'm taking care of the household. I'm, supporting the children. I'm, doing all of the things to the best of my ability. Again, with this moving goalpost. Because I'm never arriving. I'm always striving. And now I got you on my back. Because you're not getting what you need. I'm not rubbing your back enough, or I'm not holding your hand enough. It's like, what do you? And you could hear the exasperation and the frustration that comes from that comment. What do you want me to do? What do you need from me? And the backstory, and women are the first one to say, we need to go to counseling. We need counseling. And the man is like, we're not doing that. I'm not going to counseling because I'm good. I've heard that one a time or two. I'm good. and so it's there are resources out there to help men get to that place where they can be vulnerable, not with another person, their loved one, but vulnerable with themselves. Allow yourself to feel the feels, to have the pain, to unearth that thing or those things or that stuff that is behind that very steely, cold, hard exterior, that barrier or that wall that has been erected to keep you safe.
That's interesting that you say that, because having that ability, is it a case where sometimes we need, because we want to fix it, so we've got this definite outcome that we know that we want.
Yeah.
Do we need to have the space where we go, okay, sometimes it's just we're not going to have it all fixed, and that's okay. We're 80% there, and that's where that needs to be. Sometimes she is going to be upset, and I'm not going to be able to fix that. That's okay. She just needs to be upset, work through that, just be there, be the rock, be there, and eventually she'll come back. Is that part of the framework we need to put in?
Yeah. I mean, and now be prepared to be challenged when you say, I'm 80% there. Like, I disagree. I think you're at 60. But we can work that out. You know, we can figure that out. We can get the Bacchus out and start the slide and the back and forth and all of that. But you know, at some point it is on the woman to like, I've done this part. I've hit the wall on this part. I've done as much as I think I'm capable of doing. And that's where that 60-80 thing comes in. And then the rest of it is like, now you have to figure out how to be okay with that 60 to 80% that I've given. And that's on me as a woman to say, is what has been given, is it enough? And go ahead.
No, I was going to say, is that the case when we're coming back to that filter that you talked about, where from a man's perspective, he needs to, okay, I know who I am, and here's my filter. I've gone and taken that, and just said before, do I need to fix this? And they've gone through the filter and say, well, actually, you know, this is something that's probably pushing changing who I am, as opposed to, say, a behavior or addressing something, and saying, hey, this is beyond what is acceptable for me, and setting a boundary that way, and then having that discussion, having that communication. Is that where, instead of being, now men have gone a little bit too much, I was going to say the punching bag, but that's probably not the right terminology. We've just taken on too much, trying to please too many people, and we just need to say, hey, this is what's right for me, and we need to talk about how that fits and have that balance. Is that just having that ability to say that? Do you think that would help in this situation?
Yeah,
or
absolutely. It's like, and then probably knowing when to say when. Like, you know, it's like, uncle, this is enough. I've done what I've done. I'm good with what I've done. And you have to figure out how to be good with what I've done, because that's all you're going to get. If you need more, then you need to do that for yourself. And being okay with that, knowing, and this is where the vulnerability comes in, knowing that she's not going to leave you because you've only done 60 to 80%. She's not going anywhere.
That's a good point. I think, I mean, that vulnerability would actually, and saying, okay, this is who I am, would actually strengthen the relationship. Would you agree with that, or would you have a different?
Yes. Yeah, because she may.
I
don't want to give away all the secrets. Okay.
Has been said that I get people to talk about things they wouldn't have normally talk about. So.
You're so calming that way, Damien. It's like, let me just share this with you, like a really good friend over coffee. It's like, let me just give you this little tidbit. So what it does is that vulnerability, and it's a vulnerability that really translates into strength. Because she's looking at you and she's like, he is not going to allow me to push him around. And secretly, that is so hot and such a turn on that it's like, oh my God. He starts looking better after. It's like, oh my God, he is so good looking right now. It's just one of those things where it's like, you suddenly set a boundary. And it's like, this is who I am. This is what I do. I've given you all that I can in this particular area. And you either take this or you figure out what it is that you need to do for you to help you be better. But this is what I have.
Yeah. And if you say it nicely, I know from my experience saying nicely, saying, look, this is, I hear what you're saying. This is what's important for me. And I'm just letting you know that, and this is the direction I'm going. But saying it nicely makes it, I found it makes a massive difference.
It does. It does because it 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 reinforces the fact that you care for this person because
Mm,
you're saying, I hear you
yeah.
and I'm doing all that I can. But right now, this is all that I can.
Mm.
And you're essentially asking that person to accept what you've given.
I love that. And that's, as you say, that strength, the vulnerability becomes a strength. It's like, this is who I am. Um,
Yeah.
like it or leave it. I'm saying that bluntly, but it's a polite way of saying this is who I am. I care about you immensely.
Yes.
I love you, but this is all I've got to give at this point.
Right.
And
And
that's
and
right.
and
Yeah.
and that has to it somehow it has to be okay. And I've learned in my experiences
Mm,
that it's enough.
mm. How do we get
What
that?
you
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I said what your significant other gives you is enough.
Mm. How do we get that out there to, so like for the guys that are feeling, lonely, lost, and it's you not having a place in society. It's do what's right for you and communicate that. And it seems like a simple message to me, unless I'm missing something. How do
No
we get them to understand
therapy.
that?
It it becomes and I don't know. I don't know if there's no one way to do that.
Mm, yeah.
It is as individualized as the people that would venture into that place.
Mm,
Um, but I don't know. Not knowing just, and I'm thinking back to the people in my sphere,
mm,
brothers, few husbands, significant other, and a
mm,
son, and just make tearing away those societal influences. Now they
mm,
exist and they're there, but it's like we got to push those aside to find out who you really are, the
yeah.
real you without the influence of you got to be hard, you can't cry. It's like God gave you tear ducts for a reason. And it's not just, and if you got tear ducts and you got emotions,
Mm,
and if that results in making your eyeballs sweat, and that's what some people say, my eyeballs are sweating. If it makes your eyeballs sweat,
I love that.
then so be it. Go with that.
Yeah.
It's like eyeball sweat or tears is cleansing.
Yeah.
It helps to get the emotions out. And once the emotions are out and you've got that cleansing,
Mm,
then you can turn around and really see yourself,
mm.
right?
Yeah.
So if your eyes are cloudy,
Mm,
and you're emotionally constipated, for
mm.
lack of a better term,
I
because you
love
got
that.
all these things packed down,
Yeah.
tears help get that out, emotions help to
Mm,
get that out. And then you can turn around and you're like, whew, now I can see me. Now I can see why I responded that way. Now I can see why I behave in that way. Now I can
mm,
explore how I got to the point where I equate love to this thing, or I equate being in love to this way of behaving, or something like that, or I self sabotage myself because I don't feel like I deserve love, or
mm.
those are just a few.
Yeah.
But all of those things are the ones where men and women alike have to, or should, they don't have to do anything.
Mm,
They can. if they want to explore and figure out if once you get okay, I have to tell this story. It's my favorite story, and I'm gonna bring the punchline home. So there was a gentleman. He was sitting on his porch in a southern town, and he had a dog that was on the porch with them. Another gentleman came up and was having a conversation, and periodically you'd hear the dog howl. And that just went on and went on and went on. Finally, the gentleman that came up was like, "What is wrong with your dog?" And the man said, "Oh, he's just laying on a nail is all." And the other gentleman was like, "Well, why doesn't he get off of the nail?" And the man on the porch was like, "I guess it don't hurt bad enough yet." So therein lies the answer. We will stay in the place that we're in until it hurts enough for us to make a change.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And so it's because someone once said to me as well, we learn from pain until we learn through joy, and it becomes this process. But I love what you're saying there about it that hasn't hurt enough yet. And is it, I mean, do you think we can, I mean, obviously that's why we're having these conversations now and putting them out there. Do you think some of those conversations will help people see that, hey, maybe I can get off that nail? Maybe they don't feel that they can get off the nail. Maybe they feel that it's not possible. It's just their lot in life.
Or yeah, that's true. That's a lane. Another lane is that's the only thing I've ever known to feel.
Yeah.
And if I get off of the nail, I won't feel anymore.
Yeah.
And that connects to what you said about getting to the place of joy. That there's pain, but then there's joy. But if you've never felt like you've experienced joy, then you stay with the thing that gives you some kind of feeling, even if the feeling is pain.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting that you mentioned that, and I've forgotten. I had to remind myself of the journey that I went through, because now I look at life and it's fairly easy, and I have great days every day, and it all works, and I can have great conversations with people. But it wasn't always like that, and I've actually forgot that I had to go through that journey to get there. And it's one of those things where I'm not sure, and I wrestle with this to try and work out what was it that made me want to ask the question, to look for something different, to want to explore that. Whereas some people just never even consider that there's that option. As you say, it's not painful enough yet, or if they feel that if it's what they know, and if that's all they know, so that they don't know how to, if they take that feeling away, they won't have another feeling. Is that just a fear of not knowing what's out there, or not being aware of what's out there? Is it an education thing, do you think?
I think it can be both. Your mind is only as large as your world, and vice versa. And if you don't have an opportunity to see something different, or experience something different, or be around real people. Now, I'm not talking about television, and I'm not talking about reality TV, because reality TV is not real.
It's so far from reality.
It's scripted and edited and all of that good stuff. But anyway, I digress. But if you're not around real people that demonstrate something different for you, then you don't have a way of aspiring to something other than what you already know.
Yeah.
And how does one get there? Like for you, just like you've forgotten how, because I don't even know if I can fully identify when is it that I turned the corner. When is it that I decided that I had to figure me out right now, because I'm making a mess of everybody's life because mine is not together. So I need to figure out how to be a better me.
Mm.
and how to live my life in such a way that I'm true to me. And I'm still learning. It's a constant evolution. But when was it where I said I'm on this path now instead of this path?
Yeah.
I don't know when that happened because so many things changed in my life
Mm.
that one thing was changing over here while something was remaining the same. So I was basically still on the nail,
Yeah.
but at least I raised the paw or raised my hand because now it's like I want something different,
Yeah.
but I'm still on the nail because that's what I feel. That's where my comfort is. I'm still kind of in my comfort zone, but I'm like now becoming aware that maybe I could do something different,
Mm.
right? So
Yeah.
it becomes awareness, or and accidentally you run. I started, and I don't know, I probably can really state that my change began with podcasts. Just
Mm.
kind of, oh, I want to learn something different, and just going through podcasts and just saying, oh, this sounds good. Let's listen to this. And
Mm.
then finding the world of podcasts was my first thing, and realizing that I could do my exercises and walk and learn different things. And so that opened my mind up. And of course, when you have guests on, when podcast hosts have guests, and something resonates about that guest,
Mm.
and they mention a book, they mention something that they did, and then it's like, oh well, let me go and then your world starts to expand.
Yeah.
And that kind of how I got my start. And a few other things happened, and this is well before COVID, so the world was still turning on its axis
Yeah.
at regular intervals, and it
Yeah.
wasn't upside down. So that's kind of where I started. And just um being proactive about things are going to start changing. My kids were getting older.
Mm.
They were I was preparing them to go to college, and so it's like I'm gonna have a life when they're gone. I don't know what
Mm.
that looks like yet, but it's not gonna be the life of from them from 0 to 18. That's gonna
Mm.
change.
Yeah.
And so at that point I started looking for options.
Yeah.
And podcast was the start. And then the rest, as they say, is history.
I love that you talk about expanding your world, because as you were talking about that, it reminded me of a couple of things in my life, where things I was fortunate enough that I had a mum that used to take us out. I was one of four siblings, and we would, she would take us out to different things and experience different events and things outside of what would be our norm or what was standard for us. So we got that
Right.
wider experience. And then when I was in last year of primary school, I'm not sure how the school structure works there, but we go 6 years of primary school here and then
Hmm.
6 years of secondary school and then off to college or university, whatever you
Yep.
want to call it.
Hmm.
The last year of primary school, and in primary school, I was kind of one of the cool kids, and at I think it was at grade 5. We went on a holiday to our my auntie and uncle's place, which was in a different state. And for whatever reason, I don't know how this came up. I think we as kids raised it up. Their oldest daughter went back with my family, and I stayed there with theirs, and I went to school there. So we did a child swap. So I don't know. Maybe they were happy to get rid of me. I don't know. But that opened up this whole new experience. And then when I came back, because it was only lasted about a term, and when I came back, I was thinking, I'm the cool kid, and I come back. Well, the whole world had changed, and all of a sudden, I was not the cool kid anymore. So I had to go through all this transition. And then in secondary school, I was initially really good at school because I was good at studying, but then I stopped studying, and obviously, if you stop studying, things don't go so well. Uh, it's obvious, but for whatever reason, I didn't. And my dad said I wasn't allowed to leave school unless I had a job. Well, about 2 weeks later, the army recruitment people came around, and I said, I would just want to get out of here.
Yeah.
And so I joined the army, and then when I was in the army, I had the opportunity to go to Perth, which is the other side of the country. So it's equivalent, you're in Washington, so it's equivalent of me going to LA.
That's what I was just thinking. I was like, that's across the country.
Exactly. So, but I often wonder, because you talked about, expanding your world and the education to expanding your world. And I wonder what it would have been like had I not had those experiences and I just stayed in my little world, because from there it expanded. I've traveled to 44 countries that I last counted.
Wow.
And having that experience, I think, has given me a broader depth of, well, certainly when I look at people, you go, well, everywhere I've been, people are people. We all want to enjoy our life. We want good things for our kids, and we want to have fun with our friends. I haven't met anybody that hasn't had those three as a primary thing.
Right.
And it gives you a different perspective. And I'm just wondering, is that something and this is where I guess we're lucky, and I think COVID helped us, is we can have these conversations, because you and I probably wouldn't be having this conversation if it wasn't for COVID. And is it that case that we just need to be sharing more information? I have the story of, you probably remember the movie Crocodile Dundee.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's a scene where they're talking about a psychologist, and she says, "Oh, you probably don't have a psychologist in Walkabout Creek." And he goes, "No, we just have Wally. If we have a problem, we tell Wally. Wally tells everybody else, and then there's no more problem." And as funny as that is it? I mean, do we just need to be having more conversations, allowing, sharing more information, as you said, to expand your world, so people can expand their world and go, "Hey, maybe I can get off that nail."
Yes and no. I'm an educator,
Yeah.
so as a rule, education is that's my jam.
Yeah.
If you want to do something different, you have to learn. And then you have the internet, where all of this information is available. We have these wonderful devices that we carry around in our pockets. And I don't know many people that don't have a cell phone, but I mean, there are a few. Now, the world is not, but the thing is that the information is there. It's not about more information. It's about utilizing the information that is available to you, finding the people to give you the information, or finding the information. I mean, when that nail starts hurting enough, you are like, okay, now I need to go I need to go get on the internet and figure out how to take care of a puncture wound, because I've been on this nail for a long time. It's likely rusted. What are the possibility of me, needing to get a tetanus shot, and all of these things that go along with fixing what's been going on with you.
Yeah.
And so I don't know that more education is necessary or more content is necessary, but it's a matter of doing things like what you're doing with your podcast and your radio show, is putting the information out there. And, who knows who may be sitting around listening to your radio show, and then somebody walks down the street, some man walks down the street having all of these things going on in his head, and then hearing your radio show and hearing this thing about what is manly, and that's it, and it just jars him, because he's asking himself this question without knowing that he's asking himself this question. It's like, what is it like to be a man? What is that about? Why am I not good enough? Why don't women like me? Well, you're going through all of those questions, but the whole thing is like, what is it to be a man? And then they hear your radio show just in passing. They pass by someone in the market that had it going on in the background, and it just connects.
Yeah.
And then that person stops and he goes, what is that? What station is that? What are you listening to? Who is that person? Oh, this is What Is Manly. It's a thing. He got a podcast. And, maybe what the heck is a podcast? Or where can I find the podcast? So it's, but then that's how the ball starts rolling. And that's how, it's kind of like an accidental osmosis. And I just made that up. So that's
I love
good.
that. I love that. Yeah. I'll give you that credit. So,
yes, absolutely. So it's like yeah, an accidental osmosis where it just happens, and
Yeah.
then that person is reached. They start listening to your podcast. Like for me, when I hit on a podcast that resonated in a real way and began to answer the questions that I had, and that the
Mm.
questions that I didn't know I had, but then I had, then I binged. I just, all the episodes. I started at the very beginning and I binged and binged and binged and binged and binged and binged until I caught up, and I was changed. I was hooked. I was looking for
Mm.
similar podcasts, and I was following all of the people all of the guests, and
Mm.
getting all of the books and doing all the things and just ingesting. So the content was already out there,
Mm.
and there were different people ingesting different pieces of content and then sharing that. And I took what I felt I needed
Mm.
to move my life to wherever it was going, because I don't have a roadmap. I don't really know. And after all of that, I am on the What is Manly podcast with Damian Andrews, who is like half the world away from me,
Mm.
talking about all of these things.
Do
My
you think?
life is good.
Well, that's one of my favorite quotes. You may have heard of this Pooh Bear, the character Pooh Bear, and little
Yes.
Piglet. Yeah, one of my favorite is, Pooh Bear turns to Piglet and says, "What day is it?" And Piglet comes back and says, "It's today." And Pooh goes, "My favorite day." And and I love that. Every day is my favorite day. I was
Yeah.
thinking about it from the perspective of, because I think about this a lot, about how do we, how do you motivate people? Because at the end of the day, you can't teach anybody anything, and that's what you're alluding to. People can learn when they're ready to, but you can't teach them anything. But then again, how do you get them aware of, hey, you're on a nail and you can get off of it? And I was wondering about, is FOMO something that can be used in that way of, fear of missing out, and having these conversations. About how well, actually, I want to talk about 2 points here, but the FOMO side of things is, having those conversations about what's going on. I often listen. Sometimes I hear people that have been in a relationship for a long time, and the guys will talk about, the sex dies off and the romance dies off, and I was like, you're doing it wrong, man. You're doing it very wrong.
Yeah.
You obviously really, and this is, you just need to be listening a little bit to your wife, just have a little bit of listening, and do these little things just to let her know that you care about her, and she will be responding to that. Foreplay is a 24-hour thing for a woman. It's like sending her a message saying, "Hey babe, thinking of you." You do that at work. It's amazing the lingerie she'll be wearing when you get home.
Exactly. You're right. You are absolutely right. And that somehow it goes missing for men. And again, it goes back to what they've been taught about what sex is and what it means, and who they're listening to,
Mm.
and how and it's not just listening to, because
Yeah.
we listen, but then we interpret. Again, here I
Mm.
am with the filters. We listen and then we interpret through all of our filters, and
Mm.
then we come up with a product. Now, are you going to have a lumpy product, or are you going to have a smooth product?
Yeah.
And then even when you have the product, you then got to test it to make sure that it tastes like it's supposed to taste, it does what it's supposed to do, and you get the results that you want from the product. And that's how it is with sex and men and women too. Women have expectations. Man is supposed to ride in on a white horse with all of this, gonna take me away, and I'm gonna be, swept off my feet and all of this stuff. And then when those things don't happen, there are some questions there. It's like, he must not be the one for me. It's like, well, no, your expectations are way above what they should be, perhaps. What are you bringing to the table? You just laying around waiting to be swept off your feet. You're not bringing any, you're not supportive. You're not saying anything to him. You're not boosting his ego and, making him feel like a man.
Mm.
And yet you're expecting him to be a man. So that's the other part of the street that we're both on, and that it goes both ways. Again, we go back to Where are your filters? What are you bringing to the table? And what do you know about you that you can tell your partner? This is who I am. This is what I expect. This is what I'm looking for in a partner.
Yeah.
You know, and think, but also, you know, not necessarily having a checklist, but knowing what you need, but being willing to do that. Okay, he's giving me 65%. I have to be okay with that. And I need to give 35 so that we'll be at 100.
Yeah.
And being able to do that. So that's the thing. I'm learning so much about me right now. It is really, really funny.
I find the irony with that is that the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know, and that includes about yourself. And you're going, "Oh my God, I'm learning all this new stuff about me that I did," and it's
that I didn't know that I needed to know. Okay.
Is it a case from that perspective? Because there can be, you know, there's different types. And we mentioned reality TV, and there's even, you know, TV more so. And when you put into it's not TV, but it's, you know, when you put into the category of porn and things like that are out there, that doesn't give a great message. Is this where we need more of this conversation that you and I are having, going, hey, this is the reality? I mean, guys, you know, slapping her on the ass and doing that kind of, and treating her is not something that's going to turn her on. Sending her a message during the day, sending her,
well, now wait.
Okay, all right. There's some people have different, you know, excitement tools, but
that's my point.
Yeah, exactly. We're not saying, but I'm guessing probably the thing is that, so it's a good point you raised there. Is the balance of, is it a case of listening to, having that broader perspective that some people have different, you know, needs. They have different things that they like. Some people like, you know, something, you know, more exciting and adventurous. Other people are more. I'm trying to keep it. You know,
trying to keep it PG. I get it. and certain people
we can go. I don't mind going there, but we just have to tag it appropriately. So,
well, we want to keep it clean.
Yeah,
and still be able to say what we need to say. So there are ways for everybody to have their needs met sexually and in the bedroom. But the challenge with that is you need to know what it is that you want to
do. Good point.
You know, and again, it goes back to sugar and spice and everything nice. And there's another saying, and it's here in the United States, and it's like, men want a lady in the streets and a freak in the sheets.
Yeah, I've heard a similar version of that. Yes.
Yeah. So it's like, so you're putting a woman, and I know this show is about being manly, but a woman is put in one of those. Okay, so maybe I do like to be slapped on the rear end. What, you know, that may be something that makes it more exciting for me. But can I say that to him? Or will he go too far? You know, and how far is too far? You know, until you have experienced that, or you experience that thing that takes it too far, or got close to it where you felt unsafe, then you can then say, yeah, that we can't do that again. I don't like that, or I like this, or give directions. And while you're in it's like, when they get to that place, you give directions. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, if the man is going to be all upset because you're giving directions, like, I'm just trying to make this good for both of us. Because if I'm trying to, you want to get me to that place. We know what that place is. You want to get me to that place. I'm trying to help you get me there so I can like you. And so if I'm helping you, that shouldn't be a problem, because clearly you don't know.
Yeah.
You may know what worked for, and see, this is where the argument starts. So, again, I'm telling you the secrets, but this is where the argument starts, because a woman is trying to help the man be the man. I want you to get me to the pinnacle.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get there.
And little tip, guys, get her to the pinnacle. She'll want to go back. So
Absolutely. If you can figure out how to let her teach you how to get her to the pinnacle, and she will be racing you to the bedroom. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
And then, but if you don't, then he does something that's not quite what she wants. She's trying to instruct. He gets upset. And then the argument is, look, I'm not your last girlfriend. I'm different. So we got to do something different, and
Another
it becomes
tip, guys,
that
don't
kind
bring
of
up last girlfriends and what she liked. Don't do that.
right. And I mean, but women, we make that assumption.
Yeah.
We make the assumption that if he's doing this, I don't like that. He must have did this with his last girlfriend. So that's just an assumption on our part.
Ah, that's an insight. I didn't know that one.
Yeah. So we make an assumption because it's like this is not something that we, in our minds, mentally.
Yeah.
Things are happening, body parts are all over the place. And you're like, this is not what we did. Where did this come? He over there watching pornography.
Yeah.
Or two, it was something he did with one of his other ex-girlfriends, know. So those are the only two. Those are the two things that we, it could, or three, he just don't know better.
Yeah. Which is probably not the one you're going to go to. It's going to be
the first one.
No.
Yeah, it's going to be it's the first one is ex-girlfriend. The second one is pornography, and the third one is he just don't know.
Yeah.
So those are the three options. But yeah, it's that's just one.
Well, it's one of those things.
How did we get over there?
Well, we're talking about being manly, and sex is a big part of a relationship. It's an important part of a relationship, and being able to communicate that, and being a man in bed as well, and being able to say, hey, if your partner's saying, look, this is what works for me. I mean, I think that's partly on the man to go, hey, pull your ego in a little bit and listen to what's important to your partner if you care about her. It's not about you having something wrong with you, and that's probably your own issue that you need to deal with. If you think your partner saying, hey, this is what I like, is her telling you, that you're a bad person, then that's probably an internal issue you need to address, would be my take on that.
You are telling them, though, you're not doing it right.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, that's something you should listen to as well. It's not you personally. It's like she wants you to do that. It's just
right.
You're Mr. Fix-It. She's giving you instructions to fix it.
Let me help you do this right so we can do this often.
Exactly.
That is it. That's it. And I mean, that when you look at it from that perspective, why is this so hard?
Yeah. Well,
why is it so hard?
It shouldn't be. It's not. It's actually not hard. We make it hard by our own personal. I have some friends in Canada, and they've written a book called The Unbreakable Marriage, and their opening line is, you don't have marriage problems. You've got problems that you're bringing to the marriage. You both have individual problems you're bringing to the marriage. And I think from that perspective, if we look at it from that side of things and go, okay, she's giving me instruction to do that. She's not thinking I'm shit. She's not thinking she's here with me. She wants to be with me. She just wants to make it
help. Right. I'm trying to help make it great. I'm trying to make it work for both of us.
Exactly.
Because if I'm getting what I need, trust and believe I'm going to help you get what you need. And at the end of the race, we are both going to be winners.
Yeah, exactly. And we're going to be winners often.
Often. 2-3 times a day if you're lucky. Like, let's race again.
Exactly. I've got to get this time management course down so we've got the time.
Right. And then when you add in what you said about the 24-hour foreplay, then you're racing all the time. I love the analogy that we've just kind of interjected there. So we're racing to get to the pinnacle all the time.
And exactly. And what you've pointed out there, and it's really interesting because I think that happens because women are more generally, they're more private about sex. And that whole thing of what you talked about is, the freak in the sheets sort of thing. And I think that just naturally happens anyway. If a person has in that safe space, from my experience and the couple of people that I've dated that were really, really quiet people in real life, like in the outside world, they surprised the hell out of me. I was like, oh my God.
Like, where did this come from?
Exactly. It was like, I'm liking it, but where did it come from? It was like,
where did it come from? Yeah.
Because
like, who is this person?
It was like the quintessential, in the movies, you have the quintessential librarian with the glasses on, really meek and stuff like that. Just that person. And then privately, it's like, oh my God.
Like out come all of the things and the stuff. And it's like, oh my, okay, but oh my.
Yeah. And is it part of that too? I mean, because what we're talking about, and I think where this applies more globally as well is having that safe space create for both people. I mean, obviously, we're talking about what is manly, and I think we did with one of the organizations I was with, we did some filming where we had a dinner party. It was a lunch party, but filmed as a dinner party. And we had two prominent psychologists come in and ask questions. We brought people from what we knew were strong families, not the couples, but just one individual. And we had a mix of men and women.
Okay.
And we had more people there, so we rotated people, and the aim was to film it, get little snippets of bites of information that people could take away and learn from, and we published those. But what I have coming from because I was directing it, coming from a corporate background, I noticed that the men started to do all the talking, and being from a corporate background, I'm thinking, okay, we've got a problem here because the men are dominating the conversation. Used to, the meetings where it's men dominate the conversations in those boardroom type meetings. And so I asked the women off camera, I said, look, I'm getting concerned because the men are dominating the conversation or doing all the talking. And they said, no, we never hear men talking about this topic. And it was like, for me, it was an awakening going, is it we just need the safe space to be able to open up? And do we need to create that safe space? Because I put it in another context. A number of my clients that in my consulting business that I have are construction companies, large construction companies. And whenever I'm walking around, I kind of try and connect with people and try and help a little bit with life, that kind of thing. And there's a couple of funny videos that I'll show that are on the internet. And there's one that's about Tale of Two Brains. And I show that, and it describes how men and women think differently. And everyone has a bit of a giggle. And it sort of opens up conversation.
Is that the one where the guy is talking about the interconnectivity in the boxes?
Exactly. Yeah. Mark Gungor, Tale of Two Brains.
Yes.
I've spoken to Mark. He's a wonderful guy. But one time I was doing that, and everyone had left, and there was this big, like, burly, masculine, everything you'd think about, when you talk about what is manly, it's like, that he was that. He was almost bawling. He's like, so it turned out him and his wife are having marriage problems. They had and he's like, I don't know what to do. So I said to him, I said, what I'll do is I'll send you, he said he loved his wife, and, we talked through that. So I said, what I'll do is I'll send you that Tale of Two Brains, the full version, that How to Laugh Your Way to a Better Marriage, is actually on YouTube. And I said, I'll send you that. I'll send you that link. Watch it somewhere. Start watching it somewhere where she's going to walk past. And being a woman, she's going to ask, what are you watching?
What are you watching? Right.
Exactly. And I said, turn to her and say, honey, I love you very much. I know we've got problems. A friend has sent me this to try and help with our marriage. So I'm watching it to try and fix our problems. And then I said, shut up. Don't say anything after that. If she's interested, she will have a conversation with you. If you're not, take what you can with it. Take what you can from it to help improve your marriage. I bumped into him about 2 months after that. They were exactly what you were talking about just before. They were, scheduling the kids to go somewhere else so they could sneak off and be teenagers again. And so that's where I'm just wondering, do we need to be creating, rather than beating the crap out of men, going, here, you've got toxic masculinity and all that kind of stuff, going, hey, you can open up. It's okay. Do we need to shift that conversation that way and say create safe spaces? Because from what I've seen in those safe spaces, men are. I'm yet to see a man that's a complete nut of bastard. Some just have some experience that they need to learn from. They go, I don't do that way. Do we need to be creating those safe spaces as opposed to pulling out the stick? I'm putting aside, someone has been, deliberately abusive and that kind of thing, physically abusive, that needs to be addressed appropriately. But generally, do we need to have, these conversations going, it's safe to open up here, creating these safe spaces?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, but I know that, and I feel like, and even with what you've been talking about, things that you do, I think that the spaces are there. How
Mm.
do you get men to the space, to turn to the space and say and find that accidental osmosis where it's like, oh, that's me. I
Yeah.
need this. This is a challenge for me, and this other person is having the same challenge. So where can we go to get help? You know, because
Mm.
no, I think men just kind of naturally have an aversion to having their significant other go, we need counseling. Like,
That means there's something wrong with you. That's what we hear.
right.
You need to
That's
be
the thing is,
fixed.
you're broken. Let's go get you fixed. You
Yeah.
know, and
Well, is it? I mean,
and
because
as
that becomes another. I mean, when you say we need counseling, it's as you mentioned before. It's not like he's not trying in most cases. You know, and it's just.
okay,
I'm not saying he's doing it right. It's like in his mind, he's like, "I'm trying. I'm doing this. but he hasn't got the clear clarity as to what, as you say, I'm doing all these things, and maybe there's not, but I'm thinking there's a lot of if a guy's in a relationship just like a woman, he wants to be there and he does have the right intention. He just might not be understand that he's doing it wrong, and then it's like,
right.
oh, we need to do something else. And it's like, oh God, what else do I have to do? Um,
Yeah.
what you need to do is
That's a perfect sentence. That's the perfect sentence. Like, oh God, what else? I'm doing, but you're doing it, not even doing it wrong, but it's not getting to the outcome that you both want. It's like
Mm,
we talked about that. We're having sex, but we're not reaching the same outcome at the same time.
mm,
We're not getting there together, but
yeah,
we're doing the thing. We're doing the relationship. It's just not working as well as it could for both of us.
yeah,
I had there, and this just popped into my head with my ex-husband. And when we first started dating, he was my protector, which is what I needed. I was very timid, and I was just a quiet person, and I didn't really. Not that I couldn't stand up for myself, but I just didn't stand up for myself in a lot of situations. And so he came in and he became the protector,
mm,
and he would jump in front and he stood up for me. And I mean, I loved him for that. And then I began to grow in my own in being able to take care of myself and to stand up for myself more often. So I didn't need him to be that protector as much as
yeah,
I did in the very beginning.
mm,
And but at that point, he had already that was his role. It
mm,
was his role to be my protector. And what I said to him is like, it's like now, how when you're in the hospital and a person's not breathing and they have that little squeezy thing that they're forcing oxygen in. It's
yeah,
like that's what he was for me. He was forcing oxygen into me and he was protecting me and he was keeping me alive. And then suddenly it was like, oh, I became conscious and I was able to stand, breathe on my own. But he kept forcing air into me. Like, I was like, I don't need that anymore. I need you to now become someone else. And he just wasn't able to
mm,
shift into that next role or that next phase for me. He kept trying to be the protector, which I
mm,
didn't need much more of. I then needed more of a companion and less of a protector.
yeah. Do you think that's a
And
case? Sorry, go ahead.
go ahead.
I
No,
was
no,
going
no,
to
go
say,
ahead.
because you say he didn't evolve from that. Do you think that's more of a case for men where we don't listen so much, and if we listened a little bit more, we could evolve to what that is?
Yeah, and I say that with hesitation
Mm,
because it's not really as cut and dry as that, and
mm,
it kind of feels like I was forcing him to change, which I was not. I
mm,
was simply saying that you can protect me in different ways. You don't have to jump out in front, and you don't have to, keep me alive. Now you can put yourself in a position where you're more supporting than
mm,
protecting. you're in the same role, you bring the same energy. It's just in a different form. It's like ice, water, steam.
Yeah.
You know, I needed ice because I needed protection. I needed someone to be there that was hard and all of that. Now I got to a point where I needed water. I needed you to support me and sustain me, but he was still giving me ice.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, it makes complete sense. And that's what I was trying to understand from that perspective of, do we, as you say, it's a fine balance of, okay, well, maybe he needed to be a protector. That was what he needed. And that was only what worked for him. And therefore that didn't work. Whereas, someone else might have gone, okay, I've done that protector role, but there's these other connections that enable this to me to shift into, to sit back and be the water as opposed to the ice, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I was just wondering from that perspective. Is it a case of, because we can be fairly rigid. Well, I suppose it applies to both sexes, I guess, where you can be fairly rigid and going, okay, this is what I've got all these criteria for him, and if he doesn't meet all that criteria, I'm not going to date him.
Right.
That kind of thing. Which, and not saying either of those are wrong. I was just trying to wonder from a man's perspective, is it a case of, where maybe, because we were talking about communication, so I'm just trying to understand that whole communication part, whether it's a case of we need to have that more communication, and where you do continue to align, that communication helps smooth that way forward.
Yeah, I think that's, but my experience with men is that the men in my life have just not locked in on that thing the way a woman would, or from my experience, it's like I absolutely I need to explore all of these inner things about me to figure out what works and where these stories are coming from, and why am I such a prude, and what ties into all of that. And men are just like, that is too much. That's too much. I don't have time for that. And it could be simply those external forces, society, what I need to do as a man, all of the things I've been taught. I don't know. And how does a man suddenly start to communicate? And it's like, it's that thing. I don't want to do that. That's not what men do. Well, then what is it that they do? That is not what they do. Communication. And so and
yeah, no, but I hear what you're saying there, because it's one of those things for me, and me being on the podcast here is probably a misrepresentation of me, because here in this moment I'm having these conversations, and I'm having that, and I also I'm a CEO of a radio station and host a radio show, so I interview people quite a lot.
Okay.
And this happened just recently, where past couple of days I've been very full on talking with people, understanding, listening to that. And yesterday I had to shut down. I went out and I mowed the lawn, I did the stuff in the garden, I did all these things, and I just I'm not communicating with anybody. I don't want to communicate with anybody. I just need my space.
Right.
And so I'm just wondering where that balance is, and whether, from a guy perspective, because I can have that connection, and I know, when I'm in relationships, I can see, okay, person needs that time, and I go, okay, I've got to do this. This is what I'm doing now, and I plan this. Secret tip, guys: plan something in advance and tell her. Don't surprise her, because then she's already thinking about it, and you've got points. So
yes, definitely, you get brownie points for that. He's thinking of me. Oh my God, it's so sweet.
And you haven't done it yet. It's great.
You haven't even done it. You get extra pinnacle moments and everything.
And then if she tells her friends about it, you're getting points there, and the other guy's not getting any points because he hasn't planned anything. So you get this 2-for deal.
That's it. It's one of, again, that accidental osmosis is coming to pass, where It's like, dude, what are you doing? My wife is over here wanting me to do all of this stuff. What are you doing? You're ruining my life.
Exactly. I'm like, suck it up, man.
Like,
but from
my
that
life is great.
exactly. I'm going to get some tonight. Yay.
Yes.
It's not. I'm going to get some. She's going to want to, which is the main
Right.
thing.
It's not even that you're going to get some. She's going to give you some.
Exactly.
That's what it is. Like, she going to give you some because, sometimes you are at the get some stage. You're like, oh, Lord, here we go.
Yeah.
If she going to give you some, like, babe,
yeah,
you coming home early tonight? Yeah, I'm cooking dinner. And so then you're like, oh, she cooking dinner. All right, I'm on my way. All right, I'll see you when you get here. And see that's
you get home
code.
and there's no dinner, there's just candles, and then you're like, oh,
like I'm dinner.
Yeah,
I'm dinner. Let's
that's
go.
what it's going.
Let's go.
Exactly.
Entree,
main course, and dessert.
There you go. She might show up wrapped in some saran wrap. So here goes your dinner.
Exactly.
So I mean, it's there though.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, because we're coming back to, is it there's a simplicity to that. There's things that we've talked through here, and if we go, for the listeners, you go back and have a listen to it, and I'll put them in the show notes as well. There's very simple steps that you can do. Are we overcomplicating this? Are we getting all wound up as a case of going, okay, this is right for me. I'm a good person. This is right for me. This is my boundaries. As you said, I'm going to have a filter going, do I need to address this? And keep it that simple. Is that what we need to be doing?
I think so. I mean, because simplicity is best. And when we're simple, when we are just like, this is what I see, this is what I'm going to address, and the outcomes of those two things will be what they are. And not, oh, if I do this, then she's going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and this is going to happen, and this is going to be an outcome, and then we start making stuff up and filling in blanks that don't exist.
Yeah.
And when we do that, things get hinky real fast.
Exactly.
It just goes out of proportion unnecessarily. And it explodes, it implodes, things go bad, feelings are hurt, people, and then more stories are created from that.
Yeah.
I'm terrible, she's awful, she doesn't know me, she's not trying to, she doesn't love me, and it goes back to my childhood. My mother didn't love me, I didn't feel like my dad loved me, my family, and then it's just this, this thing where it just begins to grow and it gets bigger and bigger, and before you know it, you have this big giant boulder weighing on your life, and you're on top of a nail, and you don't know how to get off of it.
Yeah. Because I wonder about that from because for me, and a lot of the work that I do is life is easy. There's a simple set of principles, follow them, and it's pretty straightforward. And because I've done a lot of in this space, I've worked in this space for a little while, and I've read there's the peak bodies from the government that have done all these research and wrote these reports, very long reports, and I've read them, sadly to say, and I'm reading it going, you're talking in circles. It's I'm looking at the reports, and there's a lot of complexity there, which it doesn't, it contradicts what they said earlier. And so I'm reading these reports going, it's not this hard. I mean, I guess you can't charge millions of dollars for a report if it's pretty simple. But let's put that.
But at the end of the day, it is pretty simple, right?
Well, that's
the whole point.
Yeah.
Right?
That's what I'm wondering from that perspective. Is that more the conversation we need to have? Is let's keep this simple. As you said, know what you want, have a filter. Communicate, talk about it, be firm in what's right for you, and stick to that. You don't have to be appeasing every Tom, Dick, and Harry on social media. I can say Dick in that context without being expletive.
Yeah. It's a short version of Richard, so we're okay.
I had to. I know it's silly, but I had to throw that in there just to
emphasis on the dick, right?
Exactly. But from that perspective, is it a case of we're we need in being manly, instead of trying to appease everybody, just decide on what's right for you. And if someone has a different opinion, that's okay. You're going in your direction. Is that what men need to
Yeah.
do?
Yeah.
I know you said it was
Yeah.
attractive before. So.
Yeah. I mean, it is super sexy. And it's not just sexy in like, it's an emotionally sexy thing
Yeah.
where it's like, yeah, you can put a man in a nicely tailored suit and a tie and get them groomed just like any woman, and they will be pleasing to the eye.
Mm.
But when a man is both pleasing to the eye, but he's emotionally sexy because he knows who he is as an individual and he knows what he wants, and he's not going to mess anybody over in the process of knowing what he wants. And when I say that, is that he knows what he wants. It's like, I want a woman that brings these things to the table. I'm not going to be out there jumping from woman to woman and bed to bed. I am really kind of preserving myself because my energy is important to me. And I can't spread my energy too thin.
Yeah.
And so when I come and I'm with a woman and I'm not harsh with her, I'm very, very supportive of my person, whoever my significant other is, but I'm also ready to say, this is as far as I can go with this particular thing. I love you, I care for you deeply, and I will do all that I can for you. But then I do have boundaries where my peace is most important. And I hope you can respect those.
I love that. My peace is more important. That's awesome.
And then, I mean, and the other side of that is that, and a man who understands that about himself definitely wants to have a partner to share his peace with. So he's not shutting out the woman. He's simply saying, don't push beyond this part so that I can invite you to the other part. It's an invitation only on that side.
Yeah, I love that. That really sums up, I think, in a global perspective, what that framework is. It's, for a guy, be emotionally sexy and pleasing to the eye. I mean, I think you got it covered there.
Yes. Yes.
And that emotional sexiness is being sure of who you are, not trying to please everybody else on the planet. It's being sure of who you are. And I think because from that perspective as well, when you're sure of who you are, you're not trying to date every woman on the planet. You're trying to find someone that fits with what's right for you.
And you will attract them.
Yeah.
They will come. You will attract them because you're going to meet that person that's looking for the same thing.
Like, I love that.
I need to manage my energies in a way, because as a woman, we go into the game the same way men do, but we have different things that we need to bring. We're looking to conserve our peace. We need to make sure that our boundaries are straight and that men aren't coming to mess us over. So we're hyper vigilant in a sense that we like, oh, this joker over here, it's like, I can't. And then, and it works, and you will understand when it works. Now, will you have some conflict? Yes, because you're getting to know each other and figure each other out. But when you realize that we really want the same thing in this, at the end of the day, we're looking for the same thing. We have boundaries. We respect each other's boundaries, and they kind of work for us.
Yeah.
And then you can move forward. But yeah, emotionally sexy, vulnerability that turns into strength. That's what we're looking for. And I don't know that any man has to be alone or without a person if they want one. But it takes some work. We're not perfect. We have our challenges, men and women.
Yeah.
And just finding someone that says, your junk is my junk. And there's a Kevin Hart clip
Mm.
where it's like your junk is my junk and my junk is your junk and we just gonna have junk together. It's kind of like one of those things. It's like what's yours is mine and what's mine is yours. You jacked up, I'm jacked up. We're gonna be jacked up together and we're
Mm.
gonna have fun and we're gonna make it work with all of this stuff. We're gonna get the stuff figured out and we're just gonna make it work together and,
Yeah.
and being okay with that.
Yeah, I love that. And I think men misunderstand too that vulnerability, if you're being yourself with your partner, she'll go to great lengths to be supportive of you. It's quite, I mean, the relationships that I've seen where people have gone through some difficulties, the
Mhm.
extent to which their partner, the woman has gone to support the relationship,
Yeah.
is quite amazing.
Support and protection.
Yeah.
And there's a sense of loyalty there
Mm.
as well. And they will, as women, and I'm speaking for myself, but I'm sure I can attest to this for other women as well, is that loyalty is huge. And
Mm.
if you are sharing with your partner, as a man, if you're sharing with your partner those vulnerabilities, then she understands how to go to bat for you
Mm.
and will not use it against you, but will support you through whatever it is that you need to go through or need to handle to be your best self.
I love what you've said there, not use it against you, because I think from other conversations that I've had as well, that there's this comes to bringing your own junk to the relationship, that some men don't really understand that that's, that the person is there supporting them, regardless of what their junk is. It's like they don't
Hmm.
care about all that kind of stuff. It's like they it's I want to be with you, not all the
Yes.
other baggage and stuff like that. I want to be with you. That's it. We can deal with all that other stuff. But from what I understand, there's quite a few men out there that don't understand that they think it's, they have this. Is it a self-worth issue? But some issue that prevents them from seeing that component, and maybe that's the communication they need to have.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe when, as you were talking about it, it's like maybe they feel like they need to hide that part of them because from their own judgment and their own perspective, it's less than perfect. And they
Mm.
are telling themselves, if she only knew, she wouldn't want me because I'm
Yeah.
damaged goods. And women do the same thing.
Yeah.
Women do the same thing. So the perspective is the same. It's like we, again, our stories, our upbringing, lifestyle, you know, again, we can't, as children, we have no say in what is shown to us, projected into our lives, poured into our lives. We are just there and it just happens to us and we have to make the most of it. And we hide that part away. We put it in a nice dress and a nice suit. We get groomed. Like I said, we look good on the outside. We're pleasing to the eye, but the baggage, the extra stuff. And then you find that person, that man, that woman that's like, I just like you,
Yeah.
stuff and all. But somehow you're telling yourself, you don't know my stuff. My stuff is bad, bad. And if you knew my stuff, you wouldn't like me.
Mm. Is that because the
But that's,
person doesn't like, they don't like their own stuff? Because if you're accepting of your own stuff, you'd be going, okay, this is who I am,
yeah,
um, and you're feeling
gotta like
ashamed of
yourself.
it. Yeah.
Hmm. I mean, and I think that that's part of our own evolutions where it's like, I think I want more. This is not serving me any longer.
Mm.
This doesn't make sense to me. I know this is what my parental units put into me and I love them very dearly and they treated me well as a child, but this thing doesn't work for me.
Mm.
And as an example, I'll just give a quick example. When I was in high school, I lived with my aunt and uncle Because like I said, my mom died. My dad was a truck driver, and so I needed to be someplace stable. So I lived with my aunt and uncle, my brother and I. And I was on my way. I was a senior in high school, about to go to college and all that stuff. And my aunt is very, very old school. And she's like, yes, you go to college to find a husband and da da da. And I, being the rebellious teenager that was super smart and had skills, said, no, I'm going to college to get me a degree because I'm about to get me a job, be independent. I'm not looking for a husband. If he happens to show up, great, but that's not what I'm going to college for. So I had a plan, but had I accepted what she was pouring into me, I wouldn't have a degree. I wouldn't have multiple degrees right now. I would be somewhere in some southern town being a grandma right now, being Meemaw somewhere. Yeah. Because, just because that's what she poured into me. But if the things that don't serve you in your life, no matter how they got there, if they don't serve you, we have to have the strength to set them aside.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets sticky, because if mama, daddy, grandma, all the people that are really influential in your life and really mean something for you, we usually take what they say as gospel. It's the truth. And when it to set that aside is somehow disrespecting your elders, especially in the Black community.
Yeah.
You don't disrespect your elders. You listen to what they have. What they have to say is based on something that is some myth, some old wives' tale that doesn't even make sense. There's no scientific backing to it. See, because I'm a research bug, so there's no scientific backing to it. It just doesn't make sense, and I can't use this any longer. But it still feels disrespectful.
That comes back to your own junk, doesn't it? That you've got your own junk influencing you, and you need to go, okay, what's right for me?
Yep. Filters.
Yeah, exactly. I love it.
Filter that. You got to filter out them lumps.
Yeah.
Once you filter out the lumps, then you're like, okay, this is the consistency that works for me.
I think that's one of the awarenesses that we need to have is our beliefs. We think they're real, but they're not. It's just it's something that we've learned. I believe it's just a thought you've repeated over and over again. I remember the analogy that I was given, but I'd never really thought about it until someone pointed it out to me. But there was and we probably all heard this one, 90% of the heat, or pick your number, goes out your head. And
you got to put a hat on.
Yeah, exactly. So but if that was the truth, you could just go put a hat on and only a hat and go out in the coldest weather and you'd be fine. And it's we don't challenge that kind of stuff. We kind of take it as true. But the reason 90% of the heat goes out of your head is because the rest of you is clothed. It's like you've got to put it in. You've got to put the context there.
Yeah.
And I think
it's like a pressure cooker, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like a pressure cooker, and the pressure got to go somewhere, so it comes out of your head.
Exactly. And it's one of those things I look from that principle. It's going, okay, do we need to challenge what we're doing? Do we need to do things differently? And you mentioned this earlier about expanding your world. But that can be as simple as, I remember when I started doing that, I just tried tying my opposite shoe first. We have a habit of going to one shoe first. I tried doing it was uncomfortable at first. But it was one of those things where you go, okay, we can do things differently, and it opens up. Even little things like that open up the world for you. So it's just wondering from that perspective too. From obviously it applies to both sexes, but from a man perspective, being okay with giving it a go. And if you make a mistake, that's okay. That's okay.
My thing is permission versus perfection.
Oh, I love that. Do you want to expand on that?
Sure. Just give yourself permission to do something different, just like you tying your shoe. My different thing was starting to brush my teeth on the left side versus the right side.
I'm going to try that now because I haven't even thought about that one.
because it's like, I'm right-handed. So where does the toothbrush go first? Right side.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I said, let's try it on the left. So now I brush on the left, and it at first, like you said, it's like it feels a little uncomfortable to start, but you eventually go left. So you go right top, right bottom, bottom left, top left. So now I just reverse it and go the other way. It works
Mm.
just the same. It's just you just decided to do something differently. And that, what I've learned from those things, giving myself permission versus being perfect,
Mm.
it increases your confidence and it
Mm.
increases your courage
Yeah.
because you have the courage to do something different. And then you have the confidence that doing something different could actually either have the same results or better results.
Mm.
Because I feel like now that I start on the left and I'm not proficient at it,
Mm.
I'm more concentrated. I think about it more, making sure that I'm hitting the spaces and the spots because I'm not proficient with starting on the left, which on the right, I have however many years of experience that I've been brushing my teeth, and I'm not going to tell you so you can calculate my age. So, I mean, but I've been doing it on the right hand side
You look
since I
28 to
started
me.
brushing my
So.
teeth. The 28 and holding. So yeah, but 28 years experience doing it on the right side. I have about 3 weeks experience doing it from the left. I'm more concentrated. I'm more focused on it. I've given myself permission. So now I have the courage to do more things differently and expect the same or better results as a result of that. So that works.
I love that from the perspective of you added in the confidence side of things there, because this is something where I feel people get they misinterpret what confidence is. They say, "Oh, I don't have confidence." And it's like, well, where do you get that? Do you go to the supermarket and buy confidence? It's
Right.
not, but what you did was you just said the confidence to do that was, I'm just going to do it. And
Yeah.
confidence is something, it's not something that you have, it's not something you have to learn. It's just choosing to be confident in any
Yeah.
situation, choosing to do it. Um, and so I love that you brought that in there from the perspective of for the audience, because certainly from a man's perspective, you're going, oh, whether you're confident or not, the confidence is not, it's not something you have, it's something you do. It's in the
Something you
action.
do.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I love that.
And it just builds upon itself.
Yeah,
You do one action, it's like, oh, I did that, I can do this. And then you do that, and it's like, oh, I can do this. And so it just continues to build on itself, and it just kind of begins to just exude from you.
yeah,
And it shows up when you least expect it, but
mm,
in the most significant and substantial ways.
yeah.
Because you just like, okay, I'm going to make a decision. I'm going to do this. I'm going to step onto this podium. I'm going to give this speech, or I'm going to have this talk. I'm going to go into my boss's office and have this conversation because I'm just confident and I feel like I have something to share and I'm going to share.
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
We've talked for a while now, which it's been lovely. There's so many things that we've covered off. If we're going to bring it all back together about setting a
All right.
framework for what is manly, how would you sum that up from what we've talked about today and anything else you might want to bring into that? But if you were to sum that up, give it a nutshell, your wisdom, how would you do that? How would you sum up the framework for being manly?
Okay. So, the framework for being manly. And I like doing acronym kind of thing. So in my brain, I'm going emotionally vulnerable
Mm,
and and um emotionally vulnerable. Is that what I said?
mm,
Emotionally vulnerable, that it turns into emotionally vulnerable and turning that into that strength that
mm,
makes you emotionally sexy.
yeah.
It's like, and it's all about engaging the emotions,
Mm,
learning from them,
yeah.
being okay with who that turns you, who that makes you out to be, because you become a different person, or you become more yourself.
Yeah.
And once you become more yourself, then you're able to set boundaries that work.
Yeah.
And they work for you. So emotionally sexy, to become yourself, to set the boundaries that frame your life.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
did I get there?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That would be it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think what you've said there too is, and you've really highlighted that is from a guy's perspective, and in being a guy, in that, using that framework that you've just set out, is super sexy to the right. Well, not to every woman. Don't try and, it's never going to be to everybody anyway.
No.
But to the right woman, that's super sexy.
It is. It's and I don't know, I'm sure that's been said before, that vulnerability is sexy. But I think the goal, and what I love about the premise of your podcast, is that it's, how do you get there? Don't tell me that it's a good thing, but how do you get there? What are the practical steps that I can take, and to get to that point where I can be emotionally vulnerable, first of all, with myself. Yeah. Until you can uncover your own stuff and really just look at it, you'll never show it to anyone else.
Yeah.
You'll never, and you got to be able to look at your own stuff and examine it for yourself before you can share it with someone else. And everybody's not worthy of seeing your stuff.
No.
Because they will mishandle your stuff, and by default mishandle you. Yeah. And that's not what you want.
No, definitely. I love that. Carolyn, it's been such a pleasure talking to you. It's been so much fun. I really enjoyed this a lot. Thank you for being on the show.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. I had no idea where I was going to go. I appreciate the format, and that is so free flowing. And yeah, occasionally I come up with some good stuff.
There was lots of great stuff there. I've got to go back through and take avid note, because I was trying to take notes, but I wanted to listen, and there was so much there. So I really, really appreciate having this conversation with you.
Sure, absolutely. It's been fun. It's been enlightening. So I'm looking forward to when it comes out, so I can go back and take my own notes, because in my brain I was going, okay, accidental osmosis. What else did I say? So I'm gonna have to go back and listen. So I was like, oh, that was good. That was real.
It certainly was. It was awesome. All right, Carolyn, thank you very much for being on the show.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you for being part of the Share.Care community and helping people around the world prosper. You're creating a bigger pie for everyone to share. The more people contributing to the world being a better place, the better the world becomes, for others and for you.